What is up, guys? Welcome to my tier list for all the main characters of Supergirl. So for the things that I did for tier list, I did for Arrow, The Flash, and Legends of Tomorrow. More so The Flash and Legends of Tomorrow. A lot of people commented that there are certain characters who, even though they're not series regulars, should have been included, like Zoom and Julian Albert for The Flash, and then Constantine and maybe Damien Dark for Legends of Tomorrow. And looking back, I agree. I probably should have done that. So now for Supergirl's tier list, I will include two characters who are not series regulars ever and don't actually appear all that much, but I do think have enough of an impact on the show to be included in this video. There are other characters like Non and Astra and Rhea who could be included, but I just thought that two is enough with Superman and Lex Luthor. With that in mind, let's get into the tier list for all the main characters of Supergirl, starting with the main character, Kara Danvers, aka Supergirl, who honestly I thought has gone a lot better as a main character. I didn't like her in season 1 just because I didn't like the season as a whole. I thought the writing for the character and the acting for the character was not very good, but Melissa Benoist I thought has gone way better as an actress, especially in the role of the character, and I think the writing for the character also has gone a lot less annoying and a lot more heroic, and I think they did a good job at developing her as a character. I didn't like her in season 1, didn't really like her in season 2, but I did kind of like her as a main character in season 3, and season 4, the fact that it was the first good season definitely makes me like her a lot more, but honestly the main thing that made me like her a lot more, especially recently, is Elseworlds, where she had a lot of great chemistry with Barry and Oliver in that trio, that trinity, which I didn't really love that trinity before, but in Elseworlds, especially in the second part, they had such a great chemistry as like bickering friends and the trinity of the Arrowverse. It made me respect and really like Kara Danvers a lot more. So although she does not deserve to be in the S tier because of how bad she was in the first season and kind of the second as well, I would put her in the A tier, which I do think that that's a great redemption for the character. One character who I don't think has gotten better over the years is James Olsen, aka Guardian, or at least sometimes. Now, the reason I don't like this character is plain and simple because his name is James Olsen. Honestly, if they named him something else, I think the best thing they could have named him is Mal Duncan, who in the comics is a character who looks exactly the same as the actor who plays this version of James Olsen, and he is also Guardian. I don't understand why they named him James Olsen other than to bring in a famous Superman character, but honestly, I would have liked him a lot more if he was Mal Duncan, because he is basically the opposite of James or Jimmy Olsen from the comics. He's tall, he's muscular, he's black, and he's confident, and he's barely a photographer at all. It's really, and they also gave him superpowers for an episode or two. I don't understand why they named him James Olsen, and again, if they named him Mal Duncan, it would have been so much better, or named him something else, but Mal Duncan would be perfect because he is Guardian, and he's black, and he kind of looks the exact same way. I don't think he's a terrible character at all, and I think the actor is good in acting, not exactly in the role, but he's a good actor. But I don't think, because of how comic book inaccurate he is, which doesn't always bother me, but for this character it really does, because if he's basically the opposite of his comic book counterpart, I would definitely put him a lot lower than other characters in the D tier. Alex Danvers, I feel like, is a character who a lot of people like a lot more than me. I do think the actress is pretty great in the role, and I do like her chemistry and sisterly relationship with Kara, but I don't think she, like in Crisis on Earth X, I don't think she deserved to be in the superhero team there. It really bothered me that she was. Very similar to how Heatwave was in Invasion. That was really the one point where I really didn't like that character as a character. Other than that, I think that she is a character who is kind of static. She doesn't really change much. The only change they've ever done, as far as I can remember, is make her gay. That's one, which came out of nowhere. But also the second one was where her memory of Kara was erased in season 4, which I thought was one of the most interesting things they did with the character, which is saying a lot because it's really not that interesting. Because of that, I would put Alex in maybe the C tier, maybe the B tier. I don't hate her at all. I do kind of like her at times, but I do think she's pretty boring as a character, so honestly, I'd probably put her in the C tier. Winn Schott, I thought, was great, and he's always been great. I thought that he was maybe not as good in season 1, but every other season he's really funny. He's really great in the role, and I just like everything about him. I think they really did a great job with the character in general, and also his thing with his father, because his father is Toyman. I like that conflict within him. I don't really love his relationship thing in season 2, but other than that, I thought that he was a pretty great character from the beginning all the way to the end. Honestly, I don't think the show really missed him in season 4, because they had a replacement in Brainiac 5, who is arguably even better, like a better version of Winn Schott, but I definitely think that without him, Season 1, 2, and 3 probably would have been unwatchable at times. Maybe not Season 3, but I think Season 1 and 2 would have been unwatchable, at least like in the scenes that had Winn Schott if they didn't have Winn Schott, so I would put Winn Schott in the A tier. Then we have John Jones, aka Martian Manhunter, who I used to think was the best character on the show until Season 3, where he never turned into his Martian form, maybe like a couple times, and then Season 4, where he also never turns into his Martian form. I get the budgetary restraints, but if you have those budgetary restraints, either don't use this character at all, or I don't know, other than that, I really can't think of any other reason, any other excuse for that. Honestly, it really bothers me when characters in the Arrowverse don't use the powers because of budgetary restraints, and Martian Manhunter may be the worst case of this in the entire Arrowverse. I didn't like him in Season 3 that much, I didn't like him in Season 4 that much, but I definitely thought he was the best character in the entire show in Season 1 and 2. Because of that, although I would not put him in the A tier necessarily, I would put him in the top of the B tier. Cat Grant was a main character in Season 1, and she might have been the worst part of Season 1. Like, she was what everybody was complaining about, how this show was so preachy and how it was so feminist. I mean, I think Cat Grant was basically the cornerstone of that. I don't dislike her at all. I think she has a lot of great qualities about her, and she can be pretty funny at times, but I definitely see why so many people dislike her, and although a lot of people like her as well, I don't really see that part of it. I would put her probably in the D tier under James Olsen. Honestly, she was barely a main character. It was only for the first season, and that is it. So it's really, and this first season is one of the most forgettable seasons. It's probably the most forgettable season in the entire Arrowverse, so I don't really remember much about her being the main character, so I'll just leave her in the D tier for now. Maggie Sawyer joined the show in Season 2, and she left in the next season. She wasn't a main character for long, same thing with Cat Grant, but I do think that she was fine in Season 2. Her relationship with Alex was okay. I did like her as like a police officer. We don't really get to see cops very much in this show. I do think that was like a nice aspect of that season. It wasn't my favorite thing about anything, like I didn't love it or anything, but I don't really have much of a problem with Maggie Sawyer, and honestly, if they reuse the actor or the actress and the character in Batwoman, which is a show that I might not even watch, I wouldn't mind that because she is a character that definitely would fit into that world and that universe, although it probably would be the Earth 1 version, unless if Crisis on Infinite Earth does something about that. Anyway, I think Maggie probably deserves to be in the same tier as her ex-fiance in the C tier. Mon-El, I've seen a lot of people complain that he's a bad character, but honestly, I think he's one of my favorite characters on the show. I really like how his transformation from Season 2 to 3. I didn't really love him in Season 2, but I do really like that transformation and how they went from him, his whole story in Season 2, to his transformation and joining the Legion of Superheroes, or I guess founding the Legion of Superheroes in the future and becoming Valor, although I don't think they ever called him Valor. I absolutely love the costume, which I don't think he really wore all that often. He wore for like a couple episodes, but I love it. It's honestly one of my favorite costumes in the Arrowverse, and that costume alone, which is my favorite costume in the entire show, is going to put him in a higher tier list, because while he is a pretty great character, I do think he's one of the best characters on this show. He's definitely maybe not A tier material, maybe the top of B tier, but that costume alone, it's so cool. It makes him look so cool, it makes him look so badass that he would be in the A tier in my opinion. Now, I feel like Lena Luthor, my placement on this tier list, is going to be the most controversial thing in this video because so many people love her as a character, and honestly, it's one of those characters I don't get why so many people love her. On the other hand, I do understand why people would like certain characters. Like, I do understand why people would like Lena, I just do not. I mean, I don't have anything against her, and I do think that I am interested in seeing her become a villain in Season 5, but I do think that she hasn't really added much to the show except for creating the Mon-El, being a friend for Kara. It really hasn't been much. I don't think she deserves to be as lower than the B tier, but I honestly wouldn't put her in the A tier, which I feel like so many people would complain about the fact that she's not in the S tier or the A tier, but honestly, I think the B tier works just fine. So you might notice that Samantha, Arias, and Rain are two separate characters in this tier list, and that is because, as it turned out by the end of the season of Season 3, it turned out that they are actually two different people, or I guess two different entities, and although one of them is better than the other, I think that they really worked as the duo in Season 3. I would have preferred if they stayed connected, but the actual thing, the dynamic they had in that season, definitely did work. I would put Samantha Arias in the B tier as well, because while she is a pretty good character, she's definitely not A tier material. That being said, I think Rain actually is A tier material. She was a great villain, not the greatest villain on the show ever at this point, but she was the best villain on the show before Season 4. I thought she was very menacing. She felt like the Zoom of this show, and she was killed in the same way as Zoom, which wasn't as good as the way Zoom was killed, but that's kind of irrelevant to the character in general. I thought she was a great villain in the season, and although she did her spotlight was taken away by the Dark Kryptonians or whatever they're called, she still ended up being a pretty good villain in the end, and I think she deserves to be in the A tier, which you probably see the A tier is pretty bloated, which the only reason for that is because this is not like compared to the rest of the Arrowverse, this is just contained within Supergirl. None of these characters would really get to the A tier in a regular like entire Arrowverse tier list, but for Supergirl as a show, I think all four of these characters deserve to be where they are in the A tier, also along with this next character, Brainiac 5, who was the only reason the first 2/3 of Season 4 was not only watchable, but honestly kind of enjoyable. He's such a good character. I think Jesse Rath does such a great job in the role. He's honestly a perfect casting, and while he doesn't wear his makeup very much, I don't think it's one of those things that's very noticeable. I do like it when he looks more like Brainiac 5, but honestly, I don't really matter. It doesn't really bother me all too much for the most part. I think he's hilarious. I love him in the first two. He's the only reason that the first 2/3 of Season 4 is watchable at all, because while I do like Season 4 because of the whole thing with Lex Luthor, the first 2/3 were not very easy to get through because of the fact that Lex Luthor was not there and the main season storyline was not going very well, but Brainiac 5 was really, really funny, and he just was a great character. I also like his calculated thing at the end of Season 4, like how he became more of a computer. I really like that as well, and I think the actor did such a great job in that role at that point. So honestly, while I said he belongs in the A tier, looking at it now, I would probably put him in the S tier, although right here in the S tier. Moving on to Agent Liberty, aka, what's his name again? Doesn't matter. I cannot think of his name right now. Anyway, I don't like this character very much. While I do think that he was a cool villain in the beginning of the season, he turned out to be just a character who Lex Luthor was manipulating, which I really liked how that fit into the season storyline. But in the end, he just didn't turn out to be a very good villain. They really used him for the political aspect. He was the political side of Season 4, which was the worst side of Season 4. So I do think Agent Liberty, his name, which I honestly cannot remember at this point, I would put him in the C tier. So I don't really have much of an opinion about Nia Null. Originally, I really didn't like the character, mostly because of I expected her to be such a bad superhero. In the comics, her descendant, I guess, who has the same exact powers, the seeing in the future powers, I thought those powers were way too stupid to put on a costume and go out to the field, and I thought that would be way too complex and convoluted to be in the fight scenes on this show, and because of that, I really did not expect her to be a good character, or I guess superhero. It turns out they gave her these extra powers of manifesting energy, which is fine. I mean, they look pretty cool, and in the end, I think she turned out to be an okay superhero. I don't really have much of a problem or any thoughts about her, really. I don't like her, I don't dislike her, and I honestly I'd put her right in the middle in the C tier, which in this tier list is not in the middle because there are 6 tiers, but if there was E as well, then it would be exactly in the middle. Anyway, moving on to Colonel Haley, who was the latest addition to the show in terms of a series regular actress or actor, although there is another one coming in Season 5, who Kelly Olsen. I didn't include her because she's never been a main character on the show, and I'm not including main characters from the next seasons because we don't know who the main characters of the next seasons are going to be in terms of new additions. Anyway, Colonel Haley, I thought was a weird addition in Season 4, and honestly, I don't think she needed to exist, especially as a series regular. I think that she didn't really add much to the show except for the drama and conflict with the DEO and Supergirl, which could have been done with a non-series regular role. I don't really dislike this character at all, but it really weirds me out that she is a series regular at all, because I don't think she appeared enough, and I think that the fact that they added an entire new series regular character just to distance the DEO from Supergirl, it's really weird. In the end, she didn't really add much to the season at all in terms of good character development and just a good character in general, and I'd probably put her in the D tier. Notice that no characters in the F tier, because honestly, I don't hate a single character on this show, and I do hate characters on the other shows, so it's really weird that this is my least favorite show in the Arrowverse, because I actually don't hate any of the characters. I'm really just iffy, and I'm really just on most of these characters. Anyway, moving on to the last series regular in this entire tier list, and that is the Red Daughter. The Red Daughter is honestly a lot better than I expected her to be, because going to the season, they were making a gender-bent Red Sun storyline, which is basically an alternate version of the character that Red Daughter is right next to in this tier list, or like at this point. Anyway, it's really weird because the play on words of Red Sun just doesn't work in the female sense, because in the Red Sun, you have Red Sun as in the star, which is a star that takes Superman's powers away, or when it's there, he doesn't have powers, or Red Sun as in like the son of Russia. It really doesn't work for Red Daughter, because Red Daughter doesn't have any play on words with it. Other than that, honestly, I basically have no problems with this character. I thought that she really worked for the season. I really liked how she connected to Lex Luthor, and I really liked her costume as well. Honestly, maybe the best costume that Melissa Benoist has ever worn on the show, although that and Overgirl's costume, whenever she has an evil version of herself wearing a costume, it's so much cooler than her actual costume. Anyway, I thought that she was actually a pretty good villain. She is not as good as some other villains on the show, like Rain, or a character I will get to in a minute or two, but I do think that I really liked how she connected to the storyline of the season, and I really liked how she connected to Lex Luthor as well, so I would put her maybe in the top, or maybe like right under Martian Manhunter in the B tier. We will see in a minute as I rearrange the tier list after I finish with the next two characters, who are characters who only appeared for a number of episodes. Like Superman appeared in 4 episodes of the show, I'm pretty sure, maybe 5 episodes, and one of those episodes just being one singular scene, and also another one of those episodes being a part of Elseworlds. Still, though, Superman is one of the best characters on the show. I do think Tyler Hoechlin is such a great actor for this role. I think that he's honestly my favorite live-action version of Superman, from the writing and honestly the costume as well as the music. I think that the music for Superman is one of the best pieces of music, one of the best themes in the entire Arrowverse that we heard in the first episode of Supergirl Season 2. He single-handedly made Supergirl Season 2 better than Season 1, or maybe at least partially, and he, I think, is such a great version of the character. This is the most popular superhero ever, or one of the most iconic superheroes ever, along with Batman and Spider-Man, and I think they did him justice, and because of that, he deserves to be in the S tier. The only reason he's not a little bit better is because of how they treat him sometimes, comparing him to Supergirl, putting him down to bring Supergirl up, which they did in the last episode of Supergirl Season 2, and also kind of the last episode of Elseworlds, and I really don't like how they do that. But honestly, it only bothers me in terms of the show. It doesn't bother me in terms of the character, and I think he is a great character. But notice there's one spot left in the S tier, but above Superman and Brainiac 5, and that's because easily the best character on the show ever is a character who appeared 3 times, at least 3 times in the present day, and he appeared 4 times in total, one of the times being as a kid, is Lex Luthor. Even better than Tyler Hoechlin Superman, I think John Cryer completely and 100% embodies the role of Lex Luthor, other than the beard, which is the thing that Lex Luthor has never had, and it's really weird to me that they kept the beard on him. Other than that, he's honestly a perfect version of Lex Luthor. I think he does such a great job in the role. I love his connection to the main storyline. I love everything about him, the writing, the acting, his powers as well. Like the Lexo suit looks pretty cool on him. I remember Lillian used it, I think in Season 3, didn't really work. Like, for some reason the CGI just didn't look good, but when Lex Luthor wears it here in Season 4, it looks really cool. And that scene in the end, near the end of Season 4, like in the finale, where he's flying around in the Lexo suit, it just looks so cool. I think this is my favorite version of Lex Luthor, and as such, he would definitely go in the top of the S tier, as even though he's only appeared in 3 episodes, he's the best character to ever appear on this show. So I rearranged the tier list to more accurately represent what I think the best to worst characters of the show is. I also put Brainiac 5 in the A tier because looking at the tier list, it didn't really fit where Superman and Lex Luthor are in the S tier, and then Brainiac 5 is there as well. So because of that, now the tier list looks like Cat Grant, Colonel Haley, and James Olsen, aka Guardian, in the D tier, Agent Liberty, Dreamer, aka Nia Null, Maggie Sawyer, and Alex Danvers in the C tier, Samantha, Arias, Lena Luthor, Red Daughter, and Martian Manhunter, aka John Jones, in the B tier, Mon-El, Rain, Winn Schott, Supergirl, aka Kara Danvers, and Brainiac 5 in the A tier, and in the S tier you have Clark Kent, aka Superman, and Lex Luthor. But anyway, if you have a different tier list to mine, which you definitely do, because we all have our different tier lists, let me know in the comments down below what it is. If you like this video, make sure to leave a like, share, and subscribe, and also let me know in the comments down below what you think I should do in my next tier list, because I did all of the main characters of all the 4 shows. Anyway,